growing up in Newark, New Jersey, I went to a predominantly black school. And in that school, there were a handful of white kids that went through hell. And, in plain and simple, they experienced racism, right? And I mention that because in elementary school, I had no clue as to what that really meant and what it was. I just knew that kids teased them and made fun of them and things of that nature. And we laughed and stuff like that, but had no clear and true understanding of what that really meant and what effect it would have. I didn't understand it until I became old enough to understand it. And so, navigating society, you learn to understand racism better and learn to navigate it, And so, I began a career as a stagehand, and on this job, I loved it. I adored it. But I worked in a predominantly white field, as one of a handful of black guys. And on one particular show, a musical called Animal Crackers, there was a character named Groucho Marx. And on this production, they needed two Africans to carry Groucho Marx from Africa to New York. I was one of two people. Unfortunately, I was the only black guy, and there was a white guy that played the other guy, portraying a black guy. And no, he was not in blackface. But we carried Groucho Marx on a litter. I was in the front, and the directors of that show made up this African dialect that I had to repeat 8 shows a night for 8 weeks. Yes, I was compensated extremely well for each show to say this line. However, I was mocked, teased by, and clowned by my coworkers, the white guys, and I was looked upon with disdain from my black peers as like a sellout or whatever. And I would often go home and talk to my dad about it, who also experienced tough times. He dealt with a lot of racism in his employment at one point in time. But my dad was one of the most humblest people in the world. And he would always talk to me and sit me down and explain that he would go to scripture and just talk to me from a biblical perspective and say, son, you're not doing anything wrong. And would guide me and love on me and just encourage me to keep pressing through and not to give up and don't let anyone steal my joy, essentially. And that's exactly what I did, We prayed together, and I would just put my boots on, strap them up real tight, and go to work. And I pressed through. And so it gets tough out there sometimes, but we just have to keep fighting through. And ultimately what happens is that we learn to develop grit. And just like my friend Petey, he went on to become an executive at a bank, a now defunct bank in New Jersey. I haven't been in touch with him lately, but he went on to be a successful banker. And Diane was the young lady. She too went on to become a successful doctor. I'm sure she's somewhere in New Jersey practicing still. But they endured so much, just like I did, as a stagehand for 16 plus years. I never gave up. And so the moral of the story is that we go through tough times sometimes, but when you persevere and you continue to fight, you learn to overcome. So you never quit. Just continue to be tenacious and always put your trust in God. My name is Frank, and this is my grit story.